Yeah, Jack Smith is doing everything he can to move this through the system at light speed. And the team Trump keeps complaining that, well, he's doing it because there's an election coming up. Yeah, precisely. Because what you don't want is to have a candidate for office with pending criminal charges against him. You want them resolved. And you would think, Brian, if Trump and his lawyers were confident that he did nothing wrong, that he would be found not guilty, that he would be found fully exonerated by a jury of his peers, Donald Trump would have been insisting to go to trial yesterday. Instead, he wants to string this thing out as long as he can because we all know what he's hoping for. He's hoping to be reelected so he can order his attorney general to dismiss these charges against him, which no honest, honorable, law abiding president could do or would do. But Donald Trump will do it.
Yeah. Also, you know that if this thing was delayed any further, that those same lawyers who are arguing now that nothing should be moving quickly would say, well, we couldn't possibly do this because now there's an election that's upon us.
Donald Trump always has a reason why he can't be prosecuted.
Right.
I can't be
Right.
prosecuted because I'm running for office. I can't be prosecuted because I'm in office. I can't be prosecuted now that I've left office because I have absolute immunity against prosecution. This is just a whole bunch of horseshit, to use a legal term.
Yeah. Well, this is all regarding the matter of staying the case being sent back to the trial. But when are we going to know whether the Supreme Court is actually going to review this case and make a decision on this case, not just the stay?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's kind of a two-step process at play here. So the first thing they have to answer is, will we keep this case on pause or will we give the trial back to Judge Chutkan so she can set a trial date and move this thing toward trial? That's the first question they have to resolve. But here's the thing. Once they resolve that question, it's going to give us some pretty clear insight about what they're thinking regarding the second question, because the second question is, should we take up for review the absolute immunity claim? That's different from should we leave a stay in place, but they're closely related. So if the Supreme Court says, you know what, we are not going to keep the stay in place, it goes back to Judge Chutkan, get this thing on a trial track, that is a clear sign that they're not buying the absolute immunity claim and that they probably will not take it up for appeal. However, let's look at the other side of the coin. If they keep the stay in place, they say, we're not going to lift the stay. We're not going to give it back to Judge Chutkan. Instead, we want you to send us briefs on why we should accept for review your absolute immunity claim while we keep everything in a holding pattern. That will be an indication that they're at least interested in the case, but it won't necessarily be an indication that they're going to find he had absolute immunity. So, there are a couple of moving pieces in play right now, but we're going to know a lot based on how they deal with the first moving piece. That is, do they keep the stay in place or do they lift the stay and let that thing head to trial?
So, I mean, I think we can pretty much say with confidence that either way, the chances of this thing succeeding on Trump's behalf are slim at best. But we could know right away if they decide not to lift the stay that if they decide not to lift the stay and send this thing back to the trial court, that's pretty much their answer. But even if they do accept it for review, again, the chances are still slim to none that they rule in favor of Donald Trump having complete immunity to do whatever he wants as president.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. And one of the laughable arguments that Donald Trump resurfaces in this brand new reply brief that he just filed, he says, well, the Constitution says, or at least the Constitution means, that the only way a president can ever be prosecuted for his crimes is if he is impeached and convicted by the Senate for those same crimes. Then he can be prosecuted. The problem is, the Constitution says even if he's impeached and convicted in the Senate, he can still be
So it
prosecuted.
says the opposite.
It doesn't say only if I mean, that's a really big distinction.
Yeah.
And they make what is an absolute asinine argument that makes no sense to anybody with like a third grade reading comprehension level. So I think the Supreme Court justices are kind of probably quietly mocking that argument to themselves. And let's hope they decide, you know what, we're not going to waste any more of the democracy daylight that Trump has been burning through. We're going to reject the stay. We're going to give it back to the trial court. And we're going to let Judge Chutkan set a trial date, which I suspect will be somewhere in maybe the June, July timeframe. It's important now that the Manhattan prosecution is going against Donald Trump on March 25th. You know, you give that case a couple of months to sort its way out, and then right on the heels of that, what will likely be a guilty verdict, then he can start his DC trial.
And by the way, I should just add that Donald Trump invoking these laws or statutes or even the Constitution that completely undermine his point is like a recurring theme for him. When he was dealing with the whole classified document situation, he kept invoking the Presidential Records Act, which was created in the aftermath of Watergate to prevent a president from doing exactly what he did. So he's pointing to this law that was created, expressly to prevent the crime that he had just committed, and using it as if it absolves him somehow. So again, this is like a recurring theme for Trump.
He thinks this kind of disinformation is going to play in the Supreme Court. It may play to his base, to those gullible enough to fall for his nonsense. This kind of disinformation, as you just pointed out,